Dumela, Saubona, Sakpase, Namaste, Abshin, Dibra Otra, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, Buenos dias, bonjour, and good morning to everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Doria Laria Show, where I invite inspirational leaders to come on to instruct, to influence, and impact people to live lives a little better than they did yesterday. Today is going to be an amazing conversation with two amazing men of God. And so this is part of the Ministers on a Mission series. I not only worship with, but serve with and learn from, and at moments strategize with two amazing ministers who not only walk their walk, but they talk their talk. And so this conversation is about a walk that they took, and in essence, a plane ride to another part of the world. They do missions right where they are, where they minister and where they preach and where they serve, but they happen to have taken a trip halfway across the world. And that's what I want you to hear about today. So please welcome Reverend Dr. James Arthur Thornton and Pastor Brian Jenkins. Greetings. Wait, here we go.
It's good to be here.
Excellent. Welcome. So let me just give a brief intro. So next to me, I believe that way, next to me is Reverend James Thornton, who is my pastor of Salem Missionary Baptist Church in the city of Brooklyn, or the borough of Brooklyn, New York. And then we have below us Pastor Brian Jenkins of Chosen300.org, chosen300.org in Philadelphia. I'm going to give both of them a moment to greet you all. Please share this out. You know that that sharing is caring. We want everybody as possible to hear, not just if you know these men, but if you know people who need to know these men and the mission that they are doing. So, Pastor Thornton.
Yes, good morning. I'm delighted to be here. And we're so happy to have my good friend Brian Jenkins share with us on yesterday and remind us that all over the world, the doors of the church are open. And we believe that we have a mission to share God's word and God's love in a tangible way, not only at home, but around the world, keeping in concept with the Great Commission, go ye into all the world, teaching, preaching, and baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Excellent. And Pastor Jenkins?
Yeah, so Doriel, you started out with all your different languages, so I'm going to throw one in there.
I'm going to have to write that down so I can add that
that is culture from South Africa. I just haven't got the click there, but other than that, it's pretty accurate. So grace and peace be unto you from our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So it is good to be here. It's good to be with my good friend, my best friend, Dr. James Thornton. I was sharing yesterday that just has been a brother beloved, and he's that one person that I can go to and just dump on and just know that your stuff ain't going to be out in the street, but you can just be real with a person, and I can take my hair down. Well, I don't have any hair to pull down, but you got the point. I let my hair down and just be me. And so just a great friend and good brother, and just has an awesome ministry up there in Brooklyn. And so I had a ball yesterday sharing the gospel at his church, and just always feel at home. And I just thank God for our friendship, but also our partnership in ministry. And I'm sure we'll share a little bit about that today.
Absolutely. So now both of you are, you minister in your own right, in your own lane, in your own garden of God's divinity. Reverend Thornton in Brooklyn and Reverend Jenkins in Philadelphia. And something popped into your spirit, let's say, to go, right? Whether you're going to identify it clearly as the Great Commission, or if it was a pull of the Spirit, or you met someone in your virtual, literal, and figurative pews, or you heard a sound, or you ate some food. What was it that took you to Guyana? Why Guyana?
I'm going to let Brian speak.
Okay. Well, I think it goes a little bit back even further than that, just as far as missions as a whole. I think built inside of every single person is a need to be needed. And we even talked about that in our sermon yesterday, that in our humanity, we are designed to care about someone else. If you're not caring about somebody else, then you what are considered as inhumane. But if you have a sense of humanity that God has placed in every last one of us, you will see about the needs of other people. Just a little bit about my background, because I think that's important so that people can understand why I do what I do. I actually was an orphan. My mom died when I was 5. My father abandoned me, and I wound up in an orphanage and grew up in foster care. And I think from that experience of someone deposited in me, it motivated me to be able to reach out to others. And our ministry actually began in '96, helping homeless people through helping one person with 40 cents in a small bag lunch initiative. And it's grown into what it is today. But James and I were both part of this program called the Pastoral Excellence Program of Lot Carey Baptist Foreign Mission Convention. And I'll be honest with you, I hadn't even been on a plane. Because everywhere I went, I drove. And David Emmanuel Goatley came to Philadelphia to preach for me for one time. And he says that, we'd love for you to be part of this program. And I said, well, how do I get there? Because I don't fly. I said, is there a boat? And, but there were 3 countries that they were introducing us to. One was Guyana, Jamaica, and originally it was supposed to be Zimbabwe, but it wound up being South Africa. But the goal was to expose pastors and Christian leaders to foreign contexts and to help them, one, develop healthy partnerships, but also to walk alongside of these pastors, to learn from them, and also to share your experience as well, and create a external brotherhood that was outside of the realm of what we normally did ministry with. And that's how our introduction to Guyana came about.
Okay, Reverend Thornton, you want to add on to that?
Well, I mean, everything that Brian is saying is correct. I ditto that. But also, our church has always been involved in missions. And I succeeded my father. I'm very much like Brian. I'm adopted. We have a lot of things in common. I grew up in poverty and then was adopted into the Board family. But the pastor at the time who became my dad, the Reverend Dr. Thomas J. Boyd, we were very involved in missions here at the church. But the idea was that we could never see our brothers and sisters. We could just support them and send our money. Right. And I was happy for the opportunity that Dr. Goatley opened, as Brian mentioned, to go to the mission field and actually see and share the love of God in a tangible way. And then, as Brian will share, we now had certification to do missions work, and we've taken missions trips since I've been pastored to South Africa and to other parts of the world. And I've traveled with Brian to Guyana and Jamaica. And so we realized that the issues around the world are the same. People need the same thing. People need shelter, they need food, they need love, they need support. And so it's wonderful to understand that we are a global village. We have more in common than we have differences.
I want to actually hop back just for a moment and say thank you for sharing the connection with the Lot Carey Baptist Foreign Mission Convention, of which some know that I was just there a few days ago and had a very, very remarkable experience, as I always do. And thank you, Reverend Thornton, for supporting that effort and supporting me to be a delegate on behalf of Salem Missionary Baptist Church. I remember as a young child, and so for those who do not know, I've grown up in Salem Missionary Baptist Church for I'll be frank and honest, for half a century now, and so I remember hearing about the mission partners and hearing about these other countries before I had the opportunity to hop on a plane and cross the continental divide, and wondering, because I'm a part of like the Encyclopedia Britannica, family, and just sort of seeing these names and saying, well, I wonder why, like, I'd like to go. Coupled with that, of going to sleep on, let's say, a Friday or a Saturday night, and the last thing that we would see on television before television actually went off would be the person who doesn't look like most of us on this call, but who would be sitting with the children with the swollen bellies and the flies in the eyes, and saying, is that the only people that can go? Like, I don't ever see people that look like me who are there doing the work. And so I kept saying in my head, I'd like to go. I'd like to go. And at one point, Reverend Thornton, and you might remember this, we were doing some fundraising, I believe, about Zimbabwe. And so now that I'm putting the pieces together, it probably was right after your pastoral excellence program, and there was a heightened awareness about Zimbabwe. And I remember saying to you, like, we were sending money, and I said, "Sir, I want to go." And I remember the look that you had, that you gave to me at that moment. I wasn't really sure what the look was, but I said, "No, I know we're sending, but I want to go." And from that moment, I said, "I don't know. I don't care what it is, but somehow, some way, I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to go." And so now I'm really excited that, our church and other churches have done more than just sending, but we're actually putting our feet into a plane, a boat, a train, what have you. We're actually going to do international missions as best as possible. So with Jamaica, South Africa,
Jamaica, South Africa, Guyana.
and Guyana. One thing that came up in the conference, in the Lot Carey Baptist Farm Mission Convention this time, was Sister Lynn Joseph from Mission of Grace. And she said, not until 2000, either 15 or 16, the only people, and she's in Haiti, the only people that she saw coming to Haiti, and this is particular about Haiti, were white people. And she said, not until then did Lot Carey, and it's just a moment about Lot Carey, did they send the brotherhood, the men on missions down. And she emphatically said, it's the first time that I saw big Black men coming to help us. And that really burned in my spirit, because I said, across the country, let's just say across the country, the number of people within our churches who said, well, we'll send, and how many people went. There's a whole other conversation about the cultural hesitancy of us as people of African ancestry on the American plane to connect, reconnect, and partner with our brothers and sisters on the continent. So whatever has happened over the past 10, 15 years, God bless it. And I'm glad to hear that the two of you have taken up the charge and done your part in crossing those divides. If you have a moment to actually share, prior to this program with Lot Carey, did you have a thought about going? Did you have any hesitancy or any questions about going? Because I knew growing up, it was, well, we can't go. That's them. They're not us, but we'll send money. Did that ever sort of pop into your spirit and then get changed with the Lot Carey experience?
Well, I'll share with you. Go ahead, James.
No, well, I think I always wanted to go. I always wanted to see. I've always been curious to know what's going on in other parts of the world. I guess I feel a little bit like the Apostle Paul, who said, I'm glad that you were not able to help me at a point, but now the opportunity has presented itself again and you're able to share. And so I think the only hesitancy or the only challenge was that the opportunity had not presented itself. But as soon as the opportunity was available, I was certainly wanting to go without any hesitation.
Okay, Brother Brian.
Well, I shared what mine was earlier, is that I didn't fly. And that was my real barrier. But I think part of it too is that the uncertainty is that I'm going somewhere where I'm uncertain and what is going to happen to me while I'm there. And you have a lot of fear and anxiety, and that's the reality. I think the good thing with the Lot Carey Pastoral Excellence Program, it allowed us to be able to go with someone who had already been there, that knew the landscape, that could provide some level of safety, and then a surety that we would be all right. And so, and that helps out that there's that there's an avenue. And I think James said it well, is that the opportunity presented itself. And so once that opportunity came, we were able to jump on it and then learn how to do it, and then also put our own expertise into play as well, because there's a lot of things that over the years we've added along the way as far as our involvement with our international partners, because there's you mentioned about going. I mean, going is good, but you're there for a week. You provide resources for a week, and then you're gone, and they're back in the same state that they were in before. but
Right.
how can you provide a long-term impact and continual resources to be able to aid the villages and the people that you visited? And I think that's essential and crucial, that we remember that we're not just going on these excursion trips, but we're going on a mission trip with the focus that how can we provide a long-lasting impact that even after we're gone, something is going to help them.
Correct. Sir, you wanted to add?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think the other thing though, with the like Carrie experienced in the way that they do missions, it was not like we were going over there like the Great Hope to tell these people how to live.
Correct.
Their way of doing this is that we work alongside pastors that are indigenous to the country and learn from them and share with their culture as we sort of blend and walk together. And so it's not really just that we are giving, but we're also learning.
Right. And that's definitely a paradigm shift from what historically we are taught. Let me say, in Western culture, let me add that frame, that Western culture has an attitude of, I know, and I'm going to say it, I know better. And so let me go help those who are not living like me to live like me, because my way is better. And when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, there are some essential ways of life that actually make better sense without industrialization, without modernization, that are healthier to the planet, that are healthier to individuals and communities and societies. So now both of you happen to have, let's say, fallen in another type of love with the country of Guyana. And you've both, I'm sure, were at or exposed to all three places. Sir, I know that, we've spent time in South Africa on 2 occasions doing some work. Brother Brian, I know you've gone as well. And so tell me now about this moment that you took to return to Guyana. And I know both of you have spent time in Guyana before. What drove you to this particular opportunity to go at this time?
I'll speak before Brian because he's the reason, actually.
Okay.
His organization goes to Guyana, South Africa, Jamaica, Nigeria. He'll talk more about that. But again, he's my good friend. We became really good friends through the Pastor's Excellence Program, and realized that we had more in common than not. And
he said he didn't like me when he first met me. That's what he said.
That is very true. I found him to be quite obnoxious, but then I realized that we both were obnoxious.
You grew to love him.
I grew to love him. As a matter of fact, when he talked on yesterday at a church, I could see certain similarities. I said I could see why we get along. But Brian also puts together wonderful mission trips, and where we actually learn and we share in a tangible way with the people that we partner with, and we build, as he's shared, sustainable relationships. And so when with the people that we are in fact ministering with, and so when the clarion call came that there was this trip to Guyana, and I hadn't been there for a few years now, I was very happy to join he and his missions team.
Okay. And Brother Brian, what keeps you going back?
Well, it really goes back to the first mission trip that really motivated me to provide some more investment into Guyana. And the pastor that I was working with there, Pastor Michael Sammy, his church is all the way up the Tamari Road, which is closer to the airport. Of course, we stayed at that point at this rinky-dink hotel called the Tower Hotel. And they put us in the hotel and looked up on the ceiling. There was mold on the ceiling, and he laid down on the bed and went squish. And for me, this was my first international experience. And you go into this kind of setting, and your first thought is to complain, because I'm like, look, I don't live like this. And then I had to kind of be put in check, is that, yeah, you don't live like this, but the people that you're serving this week live in far more worse conditions. And then I found out my room was the only room that had broadband. And back then,
So you became a hotspot.
if you got broadband, yeah, you was just so I was the only one that had a cable because there was a businessman that was actually in my room the week before who paid for a line to go to my room. So I said, I'm good. I got everybody was coming to my room to get the internet. So it kind of worked out.
A hotspot.
But the story really wraps around that. In the process of going to the pastor's church, we were driving along this Humeri Road, and they were in this old 1998 Toyota 4Runner. His daughter was in the back of the truck, and they were passing out these boxes of dry milk. And all of a sudden, you've seen all these families come out to this Humeri Road. And I said, well, what's going on? He says they know to come out every Sunday morning because we have boxes of milk that we give to families. And so it kind of just it helped me to say, okay, what can I do to help this grow? And through this process, we started a food distribution at the one church. And then, as Pastor James mentioned, is that over the years, we brought other pastors over and even some of the other lot carry pastors that were part of PEP and kind of exposed them to, our model and what we do so that they could sponsor a village or a church for whatever, $200 to $400 a month. So that way that families could get bulk food once a month to help provide some sustainability. And what is amazing that has happened as a result of it is that the church, for instance, a lot of times you'll go into a foreign context and a pastor will say, I need a sound system, or can you help me pay my salary for 6 months? Okay, and you do it, and then it's done. And then they're right back into the same state. And so I says, no, I'm not going to pay salaries. I'm not going to, but I said, let me give you this program. So the church at that time had 50 members. And so even in their context, you have 50 members that are in a impoverished state. On average, they can give about a dollar a week. So the church is getting $50 a week, $200 a month. But now through the food program, it attracts people from the community to the church. The church grows to 300. Now these 300 people are giving $1 a week. Now the church is getting $300 a week or $1,200 a month. Now the pastor can get a salary for $200 a month. So it helps them to be able to, provide an immediate need to the people of their community, but also attracts people to the church to extend their Christian witness and be able to help them to grow and be able to do things on their own. A lot of times we try to, always give alms. But right. Peter and John said something so amazing. He said, silver and gold have I none, but such I give thee in the name of Jesus, rise up and walk. And what he was saying at that point is that I'm no longer going to just give you alms or benevolence. I'm also going to empower you and then also provide advocacy. And yes, I'm stealing the message from the Lot Carry Baptist Convention on Wednesday night, but yeah, I'm using it. But that's exactly what we're doing, is that we're empowering. And so as the program has grown, now we have 12 locations in Guyana that actually provide food on a monthly basis. And so it allows us to continue to go back, to expose more pastors, to expose more people to it, to help the program continue to exist, continue to grow. And we do about 1.5 million pounds of food around the world throughout the 24 locations across 9 countries. And but Guyana was the first country that we were part of. I've been there now 27 times. And but I've also been to the other countries as well to be able to set up the same model, and it works, and it helps churches be able to grow. It doesn't provide them everything that they need or everything that they want. It's not designed to do that. It's designed to give them some hope, give them some resource, and give them the tools that they need to be able to evangelize within their context. The one last thing I want to say, too, is that, James brought something really powerful out, is that we are not coming in to ride on our white big horse to save them. What often happens is that they wind up saving us. And we learn so many tools and valuable principles about ministry that you wouldn't learn here. And one of the things with me, it's been church planting. And the whole idea that this pastor who had 50 members on the side of the river has 4 locations because of the fact that they took what they had And I remember the
Nice.
first year that they built their first one, or wasn't built, it was 4 stilts with a tin roof and with some wooden planks that somebody took a chainsaw and made some benches that a splinter stuck you up in the butt. But, it was church for them, and they had a car battery to set up the sound system. And I learned that it doesn't take everything that we say that we have to have in order to start something. There's a text in the book of Zechariah that says, despise not the stay of small beginnings. And they have taken that text and said, how can we start something small and then watch it grow? And through those models that we've learned in Guyana and also different parts around the world, we've learned to say, okay, how can we take some of these tools that they have shown us and implement them in our own ministries?
Yeah, and what I think I want to share is so that you understand, Brian has one kind of ministry. He has Chosen 300, and his ministry is about sharing God's love in a tangible way and doing the kinds of things that he said in countries around the world. I'm a pastor, and I run a church that's been here for over 100 years, started in 1910. And so I see our assignment as supporting ministries like Brian that has a great integrity and a model of sharing the love and doing what we cannot necessarily do ourselves. So we support his ministry, and then when the opportunity presents itself, then certainly to go and share in a tangible way in that way. And then I just want to say one other thing, and Brian is totally on point. I mean, one of the things that I learned in Guyana and Jamaica and even in South Africa is the difference between a revival and a crusade. We sort of put the two together. For them, a crusade is going out, evangelizing the lost at any cost, and bringing people who don't know Jesus and introducing the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ to that community. And that's how the church grows. The revival is actually motivating and helping those who already know Christ to become recommitted and to deepen their faith and to get more excited about what they're doing for the cause of Christ. What I discovered, what we do here in America, is we put the two together. We tell the people who are already saved that they need Jesus, and we beat them over the head to come to Jesus. They already came to Jesus. So I realized that that's a bit archaic, and so that was a very good distinction that I learned with my experiences traveling internationally and how they do ministry. And the other thing is that sometimes people in America, they tend to sometimes believe that pastors in other countries are not educated. These pastors are extremely well educated. I mean, they have been educated in England and Switzerland, and they have made a commitment to do ministry in this part of the world or to return to the native land and to do ministry. But it's not that they don't have theological expertise.
Actually, I want to pause on the last thing that you just said. You said that they were educated in England and Switzerland. They're also educated in their own space, and that's
probably true too. Yes,
right. They're and again, it can be a whole different conversation. I'm sure it's a couple of days or weeks in seminary where there has to be a conversation of, just because they are in their own country, God is not taught, or the God that we should know is not taught in England and Switzerland, because that then has a Western perspective, which can be like, oh, so there's no God, in the continent of Africa, or let's say, and that's a whole other conversation. But finding God.
Can I just jump in real quickly? Because I think you have to kind of clarify what James is saying, is that when you're talking about education, we're talking about levels of excellence of education, because of the fact that in impoverished countries, they don't always have the resources that we do have in Western civilization. So when they're going to England, they're going to college. that they would not have. They might have university, but the university there compared to a college or university in the United States or Switzerland or England or whatever, the same level is not there. And so they're going overseas to learn what they need to learn, and then they're coming back and bringing it back to their own people. And so, and I think there's some value in that. That when we're talking about intelligence, they have they're taking whatever that they can and going and get what they need to be able to bring back to their own communities.
Yeah, well said, Brian. Right. But my only point of mentioning those particular countries is that, again, America has a kind of elitist disposition that they know more, that they're better than, and that they're going to come in, as Brian has mentioned earlier, like on a white horse and save these people, and that they are not as smart. And many times what I want to say is that I've learned that, not that it should be that kind of comparison, but if you were to compare, that many times they're much more knowledgeable than we are. And as Brian mentioned, we have much that we can learn, and we can do things even better in terms of sharing God's love if we understand that we have to do it together.
I think they also have more expertise in ministry in a way that they bring something to the table that we don't know how to do. And simply is taking, the little that you have and saying that, how can I expand the work of Christ? Something as simple as when someone receives Christ, we always take them through this long dialogue of classes, and then we baptize them. The person just repented of their sins and they're saved. They take them to the creek at that moment. And it's almost like the Ethiopian eunuch. He says, here's water. What hindereth me from being baptized? But no, you got to get your box of envelopes. You got to get your tithing instructions, your 5 classes before we get you to the pool. And, that's one of the things that I've learned. And as a result of that one piece that I learned, I cut down our new congregants class to 2 classes just so that they can learn the basic principles of salvation and understand what baptism means. But other than that, it kind of adjusted me in how I do ministry. And so when we're talking about what they know and what they can share, they have so many different new experiences about ministry, or rather experience about ministry that we haven't experienced. Something as simple as that I was in a Palmer room. And there was a young lady there, and I was about to pick up my phone and make a phone call down to Georgetown to let them know I was on my way back. And she says, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm about to make a phone call." She says, "You ain't gonna do that here." I says, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "There's no cell phone towers. You have to go 5 miles down the river in order to make a call." I says, "Well, how do you talk to your friends?" She says, "I get in the boat and I go down the river and see if they're there. And if not, I come back." I said, "So you've never even been on a computer before?" She says, "I've never been on a computer, never had a cell phone. But we just live off the land." And it taught me something at that point, is that the human connection that we have lost as a result of technology in our Western civilization has almost eradicated what we should be doing by actually going to somebody's house, sitting down and having conversation with them. We like things like this platform here of going online and communicating with people, but we missed a part about touching people and really engaging. And what they have taught us is that valuable tool of touching and reaching out and actually going to somebody's house and having a conversation with them.
And I think that's a beautiful experience. I do hope and look forward to the both of you, either individually or collectively, going on more of these trips in order to expand the reach, in order to bring other people who may have just said, "Oh, I'm just going to watch National Geographic, or I'm just going to watch those other people do it," and say, yeah, if you can, but it's a mind shift. If you can say, "Oh, I can spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to take a trip to, let's just say, a vacation resort," that same money can actually be invested in a trip like this. It reaches more people, and there's internal and there's intrinsic, satisfaction isn't even the word, but I'll use satisfaction. Yes, I could go lay on a beach somewhere, I could lay on the beach and go do some ministry as well. And I look forward to helping to support the empowerment of this work, of saying, yes, you can do both. One can sort of satisfy you for the moment, the other can satisfy you and other generations for a lifetime. So if you will, just for the next couple of moments, talk about like one tiny or one experience with this particular trip that you definitely want for a lot of people to know about, to take with them, to shift their mind of saying, okay, maybe I will get on a plane, maybe I will consider. And I have to say, and Reverend Thornton, you know this, that there are a number of people in our church who are from Guyana. And so when you were talking about this on the front end, like before you went, I was speaking to some of our church members saying, hey, I know he's going, and I think he's going to be visiting these spaces. And one of the members said, so the area that you were probably going to is maybe not like the center of where everybody goes, but sort of off the beaten path. And some people, when they go travel, they'll go to like the hot spots, the touristy spots. What's really, really moving and morphing is when people go off the beaten path, go up, let's say, whether it's the hills or the mountains or rainforest, what have you, in order to go do that work. Like, so you just said, Brother Brian, to a person that will just, hey, I'm getting in the boat. I don't know, Sister so-and-so's there. I'll get in the boat, may take an hour or so to get there. And if she ain't there, I'll come back. And that morphing of mindset is very important because, as you said, we're very disconnected with telecommunications, which is supposed to bring us closer, but in actuality, it's brought us farther apart. So if you could share like one moment that was very moving for you in this trip that we could share out to people. And thank you so much for the people who are watching live. If you want to ask any questions, this is a great time to do that. Drop it in the chat and I'll bring it up onto the platform. Or if you just have like a word of encouragement for the two men of God we have here. Thank you. So Reverend Thornton, if you go first.
Yeah, I'll go first because Brian has a lot more experience over there. But, I'll tell you, one of the most moving things was we went to the Pomeroon. And this was a rough trip. I mean, you've got to take a bus and a boat and a bus and a boat. And the whole area is surrounded by water, as Brian was mentioning. And in order for the people to get to the church, they have to come on a boat. And so you see all these little boats coming up and people stepping out and going into this church, which was the Guyana Pomeroon Baptist Church. And I thought it was a very interesting experience because people don't mind making the sacrifice to get to the church, whereas we have to have a level of convenience. And the other thing I say to Brian when I'm in Guyana is that it seems that the closer people are to the land, the closer they are to God. The worship seems to be much more powerful, much more authentic. And they're grateful for the very same things that we're grateful for, even though they may not have it at the level that we think that we have it. And they're grateful for food and for shelter and for just life itself. And they don't see themselves as poor in the way that we might, because they're rich in the love of God and the ability to have relationships with one another. I could give another experience, which I will real quick, is, I was at Pastor Dwayne's church, which is another Elam church that I think, did Pastor Sammy plant that church as well?
No, that's through their denomination.
That's through their denomination.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing that was,
sir, I'm sorry, you said Elam.
So Elam Pentecostal is a denomination in Guyana. And so you have Elam Tamiri Christian Fellowship, or you have Elam Northeast, but they're all part of one particular denomination. It's a Pentecostal denomination there.
But their children's ministry was absolutely amazing. They had like over 200 children. And it's just amazing to see their Bible school. I mean, the young people learn not a verse, but a chapter. And when I was there, they were learning the story of building a house on a rock versus building a house on sand. And the difference about being a strong foundation and Jesus being the rock. But these young people, 6 and 7, could cite the whole chapter and give you a whole exegesis of the story and of the difference between the two. That I thought was just amazing. And then they had a project, Brian, and that was to build a house. So they made these little houses, and on that Sunday morning, the person that had, I guess, the most complete house with windows and roof and whatever, they got an award. So I thought it was just an amazing experience to take the word and then make it live for young people. And then by extension for me as well. So that was just amazing.
Excellent. Okay. Brother Brian?
And so I guess part of it was the Pomeroon itself as well. But one of the things that it was like this aha moment is that, as a, an American, or I always say a person from the United States, because they are Americans too, they're just South Americans. But when you go up to the Pomeroon, and as James mentioned, you have to take this bus, a boat, a bus, and a boat. And it's a 3.5 hour trip up to spend about 2.5 hours at a location and have to take 3.5 hours back. And then, and a lot of times you would sit there and think is that, there's more people like right in Georgetown that we could minister to. And why do we got to go all the way up to the Pomeroon? But one of the factors that we embed that into the trip that's so important is that these folks never have the opportunity to see anybody from the outside. You're not only talking about not physically seeing them, they don't have Facebook and where they can go online and see TD Jakes or whoever they're going to watch, but they don't have that access. So it is such a privilege and an honor for them to be able to have somebody come from the United States, not just one person, but an entire team to come visit them, to provide ministry to them, to share food, to actually serve and be engaged with them. And so that's the aha moment, is that, you would say that, wow, why would you make that sacrifice and blow your entire day on this one group where you could have hit 5 churches in Georgetown? That one church that is way up there in the Pomeroon was so appreciative, and they all are appreciative, but they will treasure that moment because they got a chance to see somebody from the United States. And, you give a child a $1 US bill, they're like so ecstatic that, wow, what you just gave me gold, because they don't get a chance to see it. So those are some of the amazing things that happen. One of the things that I am challenged with, is particularly around Exxon Mobil, as far as because they have found oil, but they are not putting the resources back into the country. And I really think that the country got a raw deal. And so that's one of my challenges that I'm seeing, that as a representative from the United States, that I see a U.S. company coming in and not really giving them the royalties that they deserve, and it's part of because corrupt the government. Let's not flip the blame on everybody, on the U.S., but also the corrupted governments where they don't take or negotiate for what they should negotiate. But we know that stuff gets slid under the table, and so I am hoping that in this renegotiation of contracts that Guyana would get a better deal, and that way some of these funds can start going down to the people that are actually living there. I had an opportunity to go to a housing I guess a housing building expo or whatever it's called. And what I was frustrated about most is that the people were going to the expo, none of them could afford the houses. And so it's really, it's hard to see that you have this $500,000 house that they're building in Guyana, but nobody there can afford it. But the contractors that are coming from overseas are buying these houses and living in these nice places while someone else lives in a shack and shanty. And so I'm so a little challenged by that. And that's one of my, I guess, frustrations, not necessarily wow moments, but you have your wow moments, but you also have your frustrations that you see as you continue to see the oppression of people that are in poverty by the Western civilizations.
I really, really appreciate you sharing that perspective. And this is, I think, where I'm at a crossroads, literally and figuratively, because in the mission work, yes, and thank you for sharing before how it's the parable of, not a parable, but the story of, like, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man how to fish, and then he eats for a lifetime. And so in the mission work, yes, we bring flour, we bring rice, we bring, pap, which we call grits. We bring vegetables that are indigenous to the place. We bring things from our comfort zone, whether it's toothpaste or what have you, and then we get wise and we realize, like, you don't have to ship all that stuff, just get what of course comes off the land into the communities, and we're supporting them for that moment. And then you said, yes, we're there for a week, and so that when we leave, we recognize, or some people recognize, that they actually could very well be in the same situation that they were prior to us getting there, because we fed them for the day. And so the conundrum is, how do you move, how do we as a missional environment move to engage in those conversations? Again, now it's like, am I coming alongside, or am I adding, quote unquote, my 2 cents to the government, or to people who are change makers and who are leaders in the community, to say, you have all these people that basically can't afford milk, which is why they come out on the road on Sunday mornings for powdered milk. You're building a $500,000 house. It ain't for them. Who's it for? We don't have to recognize, like, who it's for. Of course, we recognize it's for other people to come in. And then what if it, like, we kind of like see the writing on the wall, but how can we make those shifts? So I'm not asking for either of you to answer that question, but it's just something that now that I'm blessed and thankful to be in a missional church, and we go and we do these things. We bring food, we bring things to come alongside, but the infrastructure is so key for a next level of mission work. So yes, when we went to, let's say, Louisiana, when we go to Haiti, or let's say when Carrie has done that and they've gone to help rebuild homes, that's one step. The next step is what? Somehow, some way, getting the people who are there to build their skills to participate on another economic level, so that they can continue to rise, whether or not we are there. Your thoughts, and then we can sort of wrap up at this point.
Well, I'll speak to that. First of all, I think that Brian has an amazing ministry, because his ministry is one that is, it's not like, we drop some rice and flour for a one-time situation. He has ministries and churches that support, like we support a church in Guyana every month. And Brian is a great record keeper in terms of that kind of thing. And I think that his ministry getting, or ministries like his getting publicity, which it does, helps people to be able to understand that there is another model. Now, what you're talking about becomes a political issue. And there can be some conversation as to what extent a missional organization wants to be involved in politics. That's not really what we do, but it's certainly something that can be looked at in terms of the disparity that happens in a country like Guyana and South Africa, and even in America for that matter. I mean, we have a very similar situation where the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. I mean, even in our neighborhood right here, they're building housing
that we can't afford.
That we can't afford. I mean, our median income, these houses are built for people who have a median income of $100,000, $125,000. The median income in this community is like $50,000. So there's no way they're going to be able to pay the rent. This is something that, even our own politicians that I talk to, and the local politicians that I talk to, they can never give me an answer. And I think one of the problems is because I say this guardedly, that they are probably in the back pockets of the developers themselves, which is why we get the same thing happening over and over again. I yield.
Thank you.
I think part of it too is that it's not that the conversation hasn't happened. I think the issue is that we have brought our capitalist society over to these countries. And I'm not saying we as an organization. I'm talking about we as a United States government, United States corporations have brought our capitalist society over to these countries, and we're telling them to change their capitalist ways. But the reality is that they're there to make money. They're there to build their $1 million homes. They're there to absorb off of the land. But I think the challenge is that the resource was their land. It's the land belongs to Guyana, and the oil belongs to Guyana. But they have pretty much taken it and given them a crap shot royalty instead of giving them what they really deserve as the ownership of their own resource. And I think one of the things that has to happen that these countries has to learn how to invest to be able to pump their own oil. And because of the fact it's their resource. And that's it's a serious investment to put millions and millions of dollars into pumping it. But once you got the oil up, it's your oil. And I think that's one of the things that has to happen with these impoverished countries, that they have to put the investment into their own resources, to extract their own resources, to sell their own resources so that they can get all of their money.
I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. So, as the two of you do your own individual mission work on your or in your own garden, Reverend Thornton here in Brooklyn, in New York, the best borough, and Brother Ryan in the city of Philadelphia, and one of your primary acts of love is to those who are experiencing temporary moment of homelessness. It's not a permanent situation. It's just a temporary moment. We are very, very appreciative of the work that you do on this land, and then the fact that you not just send, but you go. And Brother Brian, you go and you plant. And Reverend Thornton, you speak to many people across the country and across the world. We have different wonderful relationships with now friends and kith and kin relationships with people in South Africa who I call like extended family as myself. And we are very thankful for your work. Any final words or thoughts? We actually had some people who are watching us who are signifying the work that you do. Let's see if I could just pull it up. Here we go. So we actually have okay, actually, so one of our sisters at Salem, Sister Angela Graham, she says, and this pertains to the economic conversation, the conversation about politics and economy, that it would require training and commitment by the country and an understanding of economics. Yes, so that's probably about the finding the oil and seeing how we can help to build and support the infrastructure of the country, excuse me. Oh, and the investment of well-intentioned foreign assistance. Thank you, Sister Angela Thornton. I appreciate you. So thanks for being in the room. So any final words about what we should look forward to for the individual ministries that you both lead, the work that you do collectively, and how we can find you so those who do not know how to get in touch?
Well, I'm here at the Salem Missionary Baptist Church, located in Brooklyn, New York. Again, one of the things I like to say is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so it's my desire, and I think it is the mission of our church, to make sure that we share God's love in a tangible way, both at home and around the world. And in terms of sharing God's love, it's not just about giving and supporting in a material way, but it's also about having integrity and fidelity, and understanding that it's true that we are our brother's keeper. And so when we work together, and I'm delighted to partner with my friend Brian and with Carrie and with the National Baptist Convention, we have to learn that we have to work together in a unified way. And then perhaps we can come together in a unified way and put, I won't say pressure, but speak truth to power, so to speak. And some of this begins at home. I mean, because we can't ask people to do what we ourselves are not doing in a more holistic and equitable way. And that's why, as I close, I ask people to support the church, because as you support us, then we can support others. But if you're not supporting your church and you are being individualistic and just doing your own thing, because we can do better together than we can do apart from working together.
Excellent. And Brother Brian, just before you answer, so let me just say, I have to shout out my biggest fan, and that's my mama. So shout out, Mama, I see you. And so that actually, what you just said, Reverend Thornton, answers the question that she asked, is what can we do going forward? So from your statement, it's support a ministry that is supporting the work. And I think this is Mary McLeod Bethune who says, you can work individually as fingers, separately, but if you work together as a hand or as a fist, you can apply more pressure. And I think we should really use the phrase pressure, even though there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. If the greatest number of people come together under the auspices and power of God, then yes, we can. If we say that we can move mountains, then we can move some people in politics. Brother Brian, yes.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to say, before I talk about the Chosen 300 side of it, is that one of the things I've always admired about the Salem Missionary Baptist Church, and I shared with this on Sunday, this is one of the churches that I don't have to go to and ask for money because of the fact that they already invest so much in the Chosen 300. And as people give to their church, they actually sow out. One of the things that impressed me years ago, he started doing this, and I think your father did it, James, before, for Men's Day. Now, I grew up in a very traditional Baptist church. Men's Day and Women's Day was for the purpose of increasing the coffers to keep the church in line with their bills. But one of the things that I've always been impressed with is that the Salem Missionary Baptist Church, when they have Men's Day, they collect that money for the sole purpose of distributing it out to missions, and we're one of the missions that they have supported through that Men's Day effort. And so, the local church is so valuable and so important. A lot of times we think that, okay, we have these ministries over here, and then we have the local church. No, the local church empowers ministries like Chosen 300 to be able to do the work that we do. And James Thornton and the Salem Missionary Baptist family has done exactly that, and answered the call that we needed help. And they step in continuously, not just by just giving a one-time gift, but all throughout the year. They help us fund one of these churches in Guyana to be able to receive food. So I definitely want to give kudos to my good friend, the good Reverend Dr. James Thornton, and the Salem Missionary Baptist Church of Brooklyn, New York, on 21st Street in the heart of Brooklyn. So with that, yeah.
Right.
With that being said,
I can't pay you for that, but it sounded really good.
We might get another check after that one. But
so let me
but anyway, going forward, we encourage people to participate. Participate locally wherever you are. There's always somebody or some organization that you can work alongside and help out, whether that's through your local church or be able to serve or volunteer, whatever. That's very important. If you're in the Philadelphia area, you can always support us by coming to volunteer, and that information is on our website at chosen300.org. That's why I always put the website instead of my name, so that you see it all during the broadcast. It's right there for you. But then also, if you're not part of Salem, you're part of another church, and you haven't been connected with Chosen 300, you can give directly on the chosen300.org, Cash App, $ Chosen 300, or send a gift in the mail. We do have mission trips all throughout the year. The next one will be coming up in February to South Africa, and so we'll be posting that up on the line in the coming week. So grab the application if you're interested in going. It's a wonderful opportunity to do missions, and we have a lot of fun. It's not only just all work. We enjoy the country that we're in, but we also have a powerful impact. But with the idea that when we come back, that this will not be just an excursion, but it will be a mission. And what makes it a mission is what you do afterwards. If you just go on the trip and you just do the work for the week and then come back home to your comfort, then you really haven't done mission. You've done an excursion. But when you come back, if you're able to empower and impact and really change somebody's life for the long term, that's what makes it missions. And so it's so important and critical that people get involved with missions. There was a Dr. Goatley from Lot Carey. He said something so powerful. He says that Our God the Father was a missional father. He sent his son into the world that he might die for us. Jesus Christ was a missional Christ because he sent the disciples out 2 by 2 to the towns and the villages to heal the sick and to preach the gospel in the kingdom of God. The Holy Spirit is a missional Holy Spirit because he was sent into us to indwell in us, to power us to be witnesses. And so if God the Father is a missional Father, and Christ the Son is a missional Christ, and the Holy Spirit is the missional Spirit, then we ought to be missional Christians. And so we have to really get that into our spirit to make sure that we go out and impact somebody's life. It doesn't matter how high you jump in church, is what you do when you come back down.
That was a whole word. Let me that was a whole word. That was a whole word. Thank you so much for saying that. Let me just pop up all of these people who have just agreed with you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Sister Thelma Phillips, Sister Angela Thornton, Sister Angela Graham, Mama. Appreciate all of you. Let me also shout out one of our deacons, Deacon Leroy Rutherford, who greets Reverend Thornton, Brother Brian, and myself. We appreciate all of your attentiveness during this past few moments. We actually probably spoke longer than we thought we were going to. I want to end with this. Sorry. Go do your part. Go do your part. Whatever speaks to you, whether you participate in with a church, whether you participate with an organization, whether you just feed the person that you see walking down the block, if your heart is moved so that you do not step over them. If you can't give the dollar, give a smile, give an acknowledgement, let them see you, let them know that you see them. That little bit really, really helps. It really, really helps. Do your part. Do your part, and do one thing. You don't have to do everything. Do one thing. Some people may say, well, why do you do it through that place? You can give it on the people who are probably complaining, asking you why you doing your thing. They probably not doing nothing. I'm saying it like that. So do one thing, do something for someone else. This has been another episode of the Doria Lario Show. And this is a part of the series of, Ministers on a Mission. I'm very thankful and blessed and grateful to my pastor, Dr. Thornton, and my brother, Brian Jenkins of Chosen 300. And if you are in, actually, no matter what community you're in, there are food pantries and there are community refrigerators. I've started to participate in some over this last summer, which is incredible. Because of Rona and the situation that we've been in the past 2 to 3 years, the government and local communities have just come together in order to take some of the food that they have, really, really great food, and offer it to places like a church, places like Chosen 300, to just feed those who need. And if you can't necessarily take from your own cabinet, you can go and get on the line and help some of the people just spread the food, spread the word, because everybody needs to eat. So thank you very much to both of you who are feeding people, not only literally because you're bringing food or you're sharing food, but you're also feeding people spiritually, and you're planting churches and you're spreading the word. And that's a great thing. Thank you for building the kingdom. We appreciate you. Oh, thank you so much. This is Sister Wanda Roberts. Appreciate you. Sister Donette Herbert. Thank you. And Sister Angela Graham. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. And may God continue to bless all of you. I will see some of you tonight. I will be on again this evening at 7 p.m. But peace and blessings. This is a Learn to Grow Your moment where I plant seeds to help you grow. And please subscribe to our Facebook and our YouTube channel to see more of this great work. Peace and blessings.